Okay, cool. So tonight's call, we are going to talk a little bit about Altair. Not too much. We're going to talk a little bit about CFG rewards. Not too much, because the focus of tonight's call is on our Tinlake, and which is a very serious step. We already have more than 25 million DAI TVL locked, so total value locked, and many investors in our community and in the audience tonight. These people are an absolutely critical part of the Centrifuge community. And the other side of that is, of course, our issuers and our asset originators. So in tonight's call, we'll have Colin Cunningham from the Centrifuge BizDev team. You can see him there giving a wave, talking about who's working really, really hard for Tinlake, for our investors, and especially for issuers and asset originators. And he's going to give you some insights into the metrics, into the AO onboarding processes of Tinlake. So that's really going to be our focus. And we'll begin with a bit of talking about Altair with Cassidy, and we'll talk a little bit about the new CFG reward movements, but then we'll pass to Colin. And please make sure you stay around for the second half of the call, because we'll have Kirill from New Silver, one of our issuers, coming on to present about what New Silver have been up to. And that is a really, really interesting use case, real world assets and real estate and DeFi. So he'll be giving opening the lid on what happens with New Silver and talking a bit about the opportunities that they've got coming up. So stay around for the second half of the call. But yeah, welcome everyone who's just arrived. We're just getting started, and we're going to begin with Cassidy talking a bit about Altair. Our crowd loan is now live, and many of you are getting in on the action, but yeah, any updates, Cassidy?
Hi, everyone. So Helena just dropped a link in the chat to the Medium blog post with more details. But just at a high level, we started our crowd loan for Altair on Kusama, which is super exciting. We're probably going to go for one of the next options. I'd say option number 5 is a good bet to make. So just a few details there. We're rewarding 400 air tokens for 1 KSM locked. I know some people were wondering why we brought that reward rate up so far, and that's really because we're able to put this cap on it of 200K KSM that we're taking maximum. So because we have that cap, we're able to offer those that do actually get to participate with their KSM a higher reward. So if you check out that link, you can see a few more details on how that looks for the air distribution after the launch. So this, compared to the original blog post, is showing with the air crowd loan rewards included in the distribution. And so that's on top of what the distribution at Genesis looks like. And we had a bonus of 10% for the first 250 participants, but we have already passed that. So if you didn't get to participate, well, you missed your chance there, but you could still get this 400 air per KSM awarded. So I'll keep it short and sweet there. Definitely send us questions in Telegram or Discord if you have any, and we're all available to answer any of those burning things.
Cool. Are you open to any question, 1 or 2 now, Cassidy? We've got a little bit of time.
Let's see. How do we make sure Growth Keys keeps up the speed without attracting crypto crowd? Ah, that's not Altair related.
No.
I don't see any Altair questions, but
does anyone have any questions for Cassidy? Yeah, that's something for Colin. Zoom. But any questions on Altair before we move on? We have block for future. saying yes?
There's no difference between staking with Kusama directly or the website that we provided. We just hope that the website we put together was easier for users, a little bit more straightforward and easier to understand how it works. But if you feel comfortable using the Kusama portal directly, they're both exactly the same.
Cool. Okay. What's the procedure to move one project from air to CFG?
So I assume this means maybe if we had asset originators live on Altair and they wanted to move over to Centrifuge chain. And that's something that we're going to have to figure out going forward. So Altair is really going to be for that initial step, more experimental. And then probably when projects get to a certain level of development, they might move over to Centrifuge chain. But it'll be super exciting to see how that process starts to solidify.
Cool.
I think there's another one from Yaroslav. If we don't get the 4th or the 5th slot, then we'd probably go for one of the later slots later on. And we're a standalone chain on Centrifuge chain, so that won't affect anything there. So then Altair can wait for one of the later slots.
Okay, fantastic.
Cool. I will leave it there and then try to answer more questions in the chat here.
Perfect. Thanks, Cassidy. Thanks for the questions. Now let's talk a little bit about the CFG rewards with Lucas. Yeah, I'll hand over to you, Lucas, to introduce this, and we'll just spend a few minutes discussing.
Yeah, I can just maybe give a quick update on how the CFG rewards work. Basically, there's a specific wallet or like sort of account that's not owned by anybody. It's just owned by the chain that council or democracy need to mint CFG into so that they can then be distributed for Tinlake liquidity providers and asset originators. And so this sort of over the last couple of months, we've been continuously doing that and sort of adjusting reward parameters as we were discussing that in the sort of on the forum and then sort of with the council decision. The most recent update we did was a bit more rushed than normal, just because actually the account that was used to pay out these rewards ran dry. And so we had to act much faster and forewent the community feedback period and sort of moved ahead directly with the council proposal. So Helena posted the signal thread. What we did actually is we reduced the amounts on the rewards even further, just because as TVL is growing, we obviously can't just also keep increasing the speed at which we're at which the chain is awarding CFG rewards. And so that was sort of the main reason behind saying, okay, we should lower it. The other thing is that like looking at yields in other places, there's I believe that it is still rather competitive. But yeah, that's sort of quick on what happened. What's coming next? I mean, I encourage and sort of welcome any kind of conversation around other people's feedback and analysis of like what CFG rewards are actually effective. Like, of course, what is in the protocol's best interest is to make sure that we have all the liquidity we need, all the assets we need to grow as fast as possible. And we're willing to sort of incentivize the community to come around and do this with these rewards. But of course, we don't want to make these rewards too high. And so that's always a discussion. It always depends on the market. And so I'm really looking forward to other people also coming in, making proposals on how to improve it, analyzing it. There's a lot of benchmarking you can do. And so sort of in the future, in about 2 to 3 weeks, we'll have to again make a decision of how much more in rewards we want to mint and how much how we should adjust the rates. And I'm happy to like discuss that now. I hear some opinions on people on the call, but also you can of course start a thread in the forum discussing it and sort of voicing your opinion.
Cool, thanks, Lucas. Yeah, I think it would be good to hear from anyone now with any questions or comments on that. Does anyone want to take the mic and ask any questions are welcome, or actually just some comments on this process? Specifically on CFG rewards. Lucas, you said that you're looking forward to the point where people make their own proposals for the council. Can you talk through that a little bit?
I mean, we're yeah. So the way we're going to sort of handle proposals going forward and just sort of centrifuge governance is still very much at its infancy, but it always, I think, sort of the place to start is with a forum post, sort of outlining the proposal you want to move forward, asking for comments, so sort of putting out an RFC and sort of seeing like if there's sort of community consent around what kind of what way this should go, then that can be the basis for actually starting forum polls. And that's of course not binding, like all of the forum sort of there's no token on-chain, sort of no on-chain voting with what happens on the polling in the forum, but it's still a good way to get sort of sentiment of what the community wants to do. And so from that point on, there's two paths actually to sort of vote for and implement changes on the chain level. It's either the council can propose a proposal, which means the council will vote on it, or token holders can propose some proposal through a democracy proposal, which puts it out for everyone to vote on. And then so sort of once there's a bit of a consensus on what a proposal could look like, at that point it can actually go into democracy or through the council.
Okay, yeah, that's really helpful. Does someone else? Sorry, I heard a mic turn on. There's a couple of questions in the chat. Is the council on CFG the same as on air? Which maybe is a Cassidy question.
I can answer that one. So air token holders will be able to independently vote on the council. Like those are the systems, Centrifuge chain and Altair will function very similarly, but they're not the same, right? So the council will be different. So that's then up to the air token holders who they want to vote on, and also who's actually just putting out their candidacy. Of course, it's the first step.
Cool. Okay, last question on this is quite a big one, but I think Blue has written, is thought being given to set up a DAO? Do you want to talk to that, Lucas, or save it for
Can you
another
repeat the question? Sorry, it's hard to understand.
Is thought being given to set up a DAO?
For a DAO for what? I mean, like every token holder is part of like on-chain governance and sort of managing what the chain is doing. So in a way, I think that is a DAO. There could be other subgroups for a specific purpose. And that could be, if that's an idea, then I'd be curious to hear what the purpose of those DAOs would be. But I mean, like all the Centrifuge token holders are organizing around the network and are doing so in a decentralized way. I would say that fits the bill already.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on now to Colin Cunningham, who's going to talk us through some interesting numbers. Colin, can I just ask you to do a bit of an introduction, tell us about your background and what brings you here?
Sure, thanks, Kate. It's nice to meet or be here with the community again. I think I was on a call the last one, whenever that was, Kate, maybe a month ago. But I'm just about 60 days in, everyone, to being a part of the Centrifuge team, and joined in early May. My background is really heavily in building go-to-market organizations. So that's everything related to sales teams, account management, customer success, how do you identify the right markets, and everything that comes along with that. So my job here is to grow Tinlake, which is what I'll be talking about today. I think relevant experience from my past, I'm an American guy born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, and played basketball at university. And I think from a professional perspective, I worked at a company called Axial Markets back in the early 2010s, which was based in New York City. And that was a financial technology company that was building an online marketplace to connect private equity groups with investment bankers to help them sell private businesses somewhere in the range of about 25 to 50 million in annual revenue. And I worked there for close to 5 years. And after a short stint, or a rather longer stint at a sports technology company after the past couple of years, I've made my way back into financial technology in some way, but more into the world of crypto and blockchain. And it's been a very exciting first 60 days, and I've learned a lot in the last 2 months, and we're excited to share a lot of that today. So I think maybe the best place to start is just to take a little bit of a look at kind of what happened. I think we all know what's happened in DeFi over the past 6 months, but I think it's important to just take a look back at what's happened in DeFi over the past 6 months versus what's happened specifically on Tinlake over the past 6 months. And I'll just share 2 quick graphs to kind of set the scene for today's conversation that I hope illustrates the point we want to make. So let me just share my screen for a second. Everyone should be able to see that. Thank you, Kate, for the thumbs up. Gosh. Present, not share. There we go. So this is DeFi TVL. Everything was looking just fine until a couple of weeks ago. And as we all know, in the world of crypto, that's just the way our markets operate. And we thought the cookie monster was a fine little person to throw in here as the graph was up and up and up and up. And then it looks like a cookie monster just took a bite out of the last month or the last 4 to 6 weeks. When you compare kind of the volatility of TVL in the overall crypto markets, I think it's important to really compare that against TVL in the context of Tinlake. The reason that's important is because the broader media and financial media will look at TVL in the various sites and the various protocols that report on that. And that's all fine and well and quite interesting as long as TVL is going up and as long as Ethereum prices and the related tokens around them are going up. But when you think about, or when I think about Tinlake and I think about our TVL, because we're talking in terms of stablecoins, right? And we're talking about DAI, there's far less price volatility, and that's why we haven't seen the decreases, or the cookie monster has not come and taken a bite out of our TVL growth. So I was looking back over the past 6 months, and I think on January 1st, Tinlake TVL was at about 1.4 million, and we sit just over 25 million today. I think that's really exciting when you put that in the context of the past 6 months of DeFi and the graph we just looked at. Because as the cookie monster came in there, we continue to kind of set forth and continue to grow consistently throughout the past 4 to 6 weeks. And we thought these little surfers reflected the wave that we're all riding together as part of the Centrifuge community. Kirill's going to talk a little bit more about New Silver and what they've done, but maybe what I'll talk a little bit now is how I think Tinlake is changing. And I think it's really a testament to the work that the community's done. And we'll kind of outline, I think, thematically where we see things going over the next 6 months. I think in the past 60 days, what I've seen is that the quality of asset originators, as we term them, people who are bringing assets from the real world, they're starting to hit such a scale that our team at Centrifuge internally, we're starting to hit the breaking points, if you will, right? Just from a resourcing perspective, the amount of asset originators that we're willing to, that we're able to help, that we're able to guide through how Tinlake works, to help them understand DeFi at a higher level. There's just a level of education, and it can be a job unto itself to access capital through Tinlake, that you need a level of expertise, coaching, and to some degree hand-holding to make that work. And with the scale of asset originators that we're starting to see on a weekly basis, there's an emerging need for actually more issuers, right? And issuers are the groups that actually manage Tinlake Pools, right? And so when you think about when our community or the broader world thinks about investing through Centrifuge into real world assets, it's important to just to know that those asset originators are being guided to some degree by an issuer, or the asset originator themselves has gone through the process of really learning how to access DeFi capital. So I think as we look out over the next 6 months, we're going to see a lot more asset originators need help. And I've actually been working very closely with Kate, and we'll continue to work with the entire community to think about how we help these asset originators receive the education and insights that they need by leveraging broader parts of our ecosystem and our community to help those asset originators onboard more quickly and get the financing they need for the real world assets that they're bringing through Tinlake. I think secondarily to that, I think if you look at Centrifuge today, or excuse me, if you look at Tinlake today, there's pools of various sizes, and we haven't yet hit pool sizes of 10 million, though Kirill is very close. And obviously the Maker partnership that was announced over the last 90 days is fundamental to the growth of our protocol. And I think it'll continue to be fundamental as we look ahead. That said, because of the hard work of this community and the work that's been done over the past 6 months, our business development team internally is beginning to engage in conversations of a much larger size. And so where, I think the conversations we've had over the past 6 months have started at $1 million, 2 million in total assets locked, or assets that need to be financed. We're starting to have conversations upwards of 20, 30 million at launch. And we have aspirations of serving pools that will be in the 9 digits. I don't know when that will be. I hope that is sooner rather than later. But those types of conversations are starting to occur. And I think that speaks to a couple of things. I think it speaks to the trust that a lot of asset originators have put into us in the early days, and that hopefully we've delivered on that trust. I think second, it's the community and all the work that's been going on here. And I think third, and finally, it's just the growth of DeFi. And so we're starting to see a level of size and a level of quality coming from the asset originator community and the capital that they're seeking that I would describe as unprecedented, at least in the 60 days that I've been here. And I know this community has been around far longer than just me, but the quality and the size of the assets continues to get larger and larger and improve. And I think that's exciting for everyone on this call. I think finally, and I saw one of the questions coming in from the community is, what is it going to look like as, when you think about a bear market, or, however one might describe the current crypto markets, when there is this pullback in value and there is a decrease in overall TVL across DeFi, we've witnessed and we think there's an important need to start to expand our relationships from the capital perspective. So we can't continue to rely on retail. Retail is all of us, any individual, continuing to provide the amount of liquidity that we're starting to see from what I would describe as the demand side of Tinlake, which is everyone seeking to finance certain assets. And so there's a ongoing piece of work internally within the Centrifuge team to identify the right capital sources on an institutional basis outside of DeFi that are interested in financing the real world assets that are coming through Centrifuge and through Tinlake, and beginning to dip their toe in a very large way relative to our current TVL to finance the assets that are coming on Tinlake. So I think thematically, we're showing here the wave and the surfers and everything going up. And I think that's consistent. And I think it's a testament to the community. I think it's a testament to all the work we've done. And I think over the next 6 months and on subsequent community calls, we'd like to begin to share a lot of these new asset originators and institutional capital providers that are coming through the pipeline. And you'll get to know them as well as we are starting to get to know them as we develop the conversations today. So I'll pause there, and I'm sure there's a couple of questions that I'm happy to dive in on, and I'll stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, nice one, Colin. TJ, can I pass to you to just speak out your question so I don't need to?
Yeah, sure. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, so maybe a little bit of a complicated question, but it occurred to me that as the TVL locked in the protocol grows, there's going to be a lot of interesting granular data on underlying pools sort of across verticals and across geographies, which I would think would be the broadest sort of data set, at least from what I can tell, on real world assets on chain that sort of exist. And I would think people would want to use that. They'd want to use an API to reference that data to build sort of synthetics or credit default swaps or anything they might want to build on top of that. Do you guys envision Tinlake becoming sort of an oracle of sorts to kind of offset onboarding costs or to build an extra revenue stream for the treasury?
Lucas, you want to jump in on this one? I think that's probably a bit more outside of the immediate growth of Tinlake.
I'm sorry, Colin, you put me on the spot and I wasn't fully listening. TJ, if you want to repeat the question, then I'll definitely answer it.
Yeah, I'll cut it down a bit. I'm basically just asking, as TVL grows and there's more good information on the underlying assets, do you guys envision being an oracle of sorts to people trying to use the underlying and build synthetics on top of it?
Yeah, I saw the question in the chat as well. So, I mean, like I'm not sure like what the use case would be, but you're trying to say that like we can use Tinlake assets as like a price feed, but not actually as collateral.
Yeah, just so I imagine there's going to be a variety of parameters that describe the underlying assets, and I would think people would be interested in building things on top of that, right? Whether that's an index that represents a certain geography or a certain asset type, or build a credit default swap that someone might want to take either side of. There are things that I imagine people want to build because you guys have good information on real assets, which is rare on chain thus far.
Yeah, I mean, we are like, I think sort of, and by no means an expert in derivatives and like sort of synthetic assets, but yeah, I mean, we have what we will be building, right, with all these pools is a huge trove of information of like how individual loans are performing, and that could be used to actually build products that are like completely decoupled, like are linked economically but decoupled if you look at like how the products are linked. I think it's super interesting. I don't know how far we are from that, because for that we really need to see like sort of a liquid market for some of these assets. I think that you can sort of build this kind of speculation or like sort of trading on top of it, but yeah.
Thanks.
TJ, I'll jump in with one thought there. I will say, as we start to engage with like more institutional capital from the world of centralized finance, they are trying to get their heads around quickly, you know, what are the assets, what are the default rates, you know, what's the duration, what's the maturity, like they're starting to look for, I would say 5, 10, 15 attributes across pools so that they can start to quickly get their heads around that through their LPs. Right. And I think that's probably a first step before we think about a pricing oracle. And I think we've got some work to do on just organizing, right, the information, especially as more pools spin up and as we launch more pools. How do you get a quick snapshot, right, on the asset allocation and the kind of the terms of the risk and reward around those assets, versus having to go through an entire executive summary, right? And that might be a next step for us over the next 6 months. As we work towards a broader pricing oracle, longer term pricing oracle type strategy. So it's a great question.
Thanks, Colin.
Maybe to answer Justin your question, is there a clear opportunity to actually reinvent the way that commercial valuation system works for real world assets? Could Tinlake become a price oracle that is more modern and relevant way to value real world assets compared to traditional methods of valuing real world assets? I think like all of the big rating agencies like completely failed us in 2008 with the sort of the mortgage crisis, and I think the big reason is because they really didn't have enough at stake, and there was not really a clear incentive for those companies to underwrite these assets well. They were really just putting their stamp on a whole bunch of papers that they had very little idea of. We don't have much about this online already, but this is something we're very actively working on, researching, and we are putting sort of this, we're putting this a bit more color to this in the coming weeks and months as we work on it more. But I posted a link in the forum thread on the underwriter token model, which is actually addressing exactly this. It's saying that instead of having sort of very, very static oracles, we're taking sort of a token model that can bring underwriters into the pools and letting them sort of vote on the different assets, sort of bring in their own pricing information, their own theories around pricing, and all of that sort of with an economic model behind it that hopefully will work much better than what we see today.
Oh, great. Nice questions coming through. We have time for one last one before we hand over to New Silver to talk about their work. Anyone have one last question on what Colin has presented?
I think Christian asked a question a bit earlier about how the next bear market or crypto winter will influence the TVL and Tinlake. Do you expect a huge withdrawal of DAI from the pools? I don't think we're in a crypto winter now, probably a bit more of a shocking moment or whatever, just a typical pullback, Christian. My view on this and, some of the thoughts that we're having around institutional capital is I think we want to, I think the word is probably robust is what I would use, right? I think the mission of Centrifuge and what we're trying to achieve here with Tinlake can remain fully intact by providing everyone on this call, including myself, access to the ability to invest in real world assets with your personal income or through your own personal investment strategies, however you may choose. At the same time, speaking again to just the size that asset originators are starting to ask us for, we know that retail, probably can't facilitate that in the short or in the long term. So I think from a capital markets perspective, or from a wanting to have a robust offering that various institutions can access when they're looking to finance real world assets, I think retail is a part of that equation, but I don't think they're the entire equation. And so the conversations we're starting to have with the broader world of centralized institutional finance or traditional finance as we all know it. Early conversations are incredibly encouraging with those folks that really want to deploy capital through Tinlake and get access to the real world assets from asset originators that are here and are coming through over the next coming months. So yes, I think we're preparing for that, but that's not the motivation to survive the winter. The motivation is to actually build a thriving ecosystem that the protocol supports on both the assets and the capital side.
Cool, thanks, Colin. There's one there that's quite interesting, addressed to you, if you want to answer it before we...
Yaroslav on TVL to see by the end of the year. It's a very hard question to answer, but it's top of mind for me. I don't want to make any predictions just yet, Yaroslav, but I would hope that in the coming weeks, we can start to share at the next community call some projections on launch dates of new asset originators, and the size with which they're launching should allow the community itself to begin to project. I guess I'll plead the fifth in this scenario in the sense that I don't want to say something that disappoints the community, but I will commit to sharing better information and starting to share better projections and introduce more groups on both the capital and institution side that can allow the community to start to draw your own conclusions from the people you meet and the data that you consume.
Great. There's one more question in the chat, but we'll come back to that at the end of the call, if that's okay, Pat. Okay, so now I'm going to pass over to Kirill from New Silver, who's going to share. Are you with us? There you go. Welcome, Kirill, to the call, and thank you so much for presenting. You're muted. Yeah.
Thanks for having me. Cool. All right. Thank you. All right. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to share a quick presentation, just kind of give you an update on New Silver and what we've been up to, and also give you just a general overview of the company for the folks that that don't know us yet. Just share my screen. All right. So our mission is to enable entrepreneurial growth by providing real estate investors with fast, conveniently accessible capital by harnessing technology to improve investor journey from property search to finish. So when I got into the business of short-term lending for fix and flip, this is what we do. We essentially lend short-term capital to investors located in the US. We're in about 40 different states for the purposes of purchasing, renovating, and reselling this renovated property, basically fix and flip type of scenario. So one of the things that attracted me was when just to give my personal background, I'm not from the finance space. I was a technologist previously, but worked in the enterprise IT space. So really worked with corporate IT departments and so forth. So this was quite a change, coming into New Silver. And one of the things that really excited me and attracted me to it is when I was learning of who the people are that are essentially our borrowers, right? Who are our clients? And it's sort of the everyday person, the lower middle class, any type of person that's really interested in making this extra income. And this fix and flip allows people to actually earn substantial incomes in some cases without necessarily having lots of education and lots of office-like experience. So it's people who could be swinging the hammer, or we have borrowers who are doctors and they're just interested in making extra income as well. So that's really exciting to me is the community that we serve. So as I said, we're a non-bank direct lender providing real estate financing. We started in 2018, went live in 2019. We've made over 50 million of loans to date without any losses so far. We have some proprietary technology that we've built for automated loan approval, underwriting, and pricing. We lend in about 40 states right now. We're actually going through the licensing process in California, which we're not in, but hopefully in the coming months we'll be able to open up that market as well, which is a large market. And we partner with various data providers to help us do this automated approval and underwriting. So essentially the technology that we've built allows us to differentiate by providing instant loan offer to our borrowers. So when they get onto our website, without necessarily speaking to anyone, if they don't want to, they can input some data and get back essentially the type of loan that they could possibly get with New Silver. And on our end, on the underwriting side, it helps us to essentially get rid of 90% or so of applications that we would not be approving. So we're pretty high volume. I'll show you some of the numbers that we're looking at. And we also have a tool that kind of in the spirit of helping our borrowers build from do everything that they need to do with real estate from A to Z. We built this tool called Flip Scout, which it's free to use, and they can basically register and then do a property search for a zip code or a city or any geographic area, and it helps them quickly find properties that are essentially a potentially good fix and flip or a buy and hold investment. So that helps. And these are on market properties, so they're on sale now. In the current market condition, it is very, very difficult for borrowers to find potential projects. So this tool helps them. And then we're also looking to build additional functionality to show them off-market properties and maybe help them acquire these off-market properties. And we're also going to be building, we're talking with Centrifuge about this, we're also going to be building hopefully the ability to see more data on chain. So, I think, my personal, kind of forward-thinking goal would be if someone wanted to go and basically look at the NFT or look on chain and be able to see, what's the current status of this loan? Is it up to date? Is it past due? What's been the returns and that kind of stuff. So I think there's a lot of interesting data that we can bring on chain to make everything more transparent. Just on the loan products, we have these 4 different products. Fix and flip is basically what I was just describing, and refinance is essentially the same thing for for somebody that already owns the property. Ground up is basically someone that's building from scratch, but the loan is really not that different from a fix and flip loan. And rent is a longer term stabilized property for a sort of a buy and hold investor, and we partner with someone to basically take those loans once we originate them, because we're not in the business of holding 30-year debt. Just an interesting post that I wanted to share that came from Peer Street, which is an aggregator of loans, fix and flip loans, just to kind of give you a quick show of how the loans have performed. So they have 6,700 or so loans in their portfolio, and this is up to the end of last year. So you can see here, 3.68% of them filed a foreclosure, but 3.15% paid off prior to the foreclosure sale, and only 0.5% went to foreclosure. Now, out of that 0.5%, only 0.31% had negative investor returns. So, the vast majority. So the loss risk is about 0.4%, and we don't know what the actual loss was. There was a loss, but was it 5%, 20%? We don't know that, but nevertheless, I mean, the 0.4% loss risk, I believe, is fairly low for such a substantial portfolio of loans. So just a quick update on how we did last month, essentially. So we had 339 new loan applications in June. about $89 million worth of deal volume in those applications. We financed, out of the 339, we financed 13 deals worth $3.8 million without any defaults. So on Tinlake, we've been open since December of 2020. There is 39 assets and one has been repaid, a little bit over $8 million in total pool value. And then you could see the average numbers. The loan to value average is 72%, average FICO is 716, loan to cost average is 83%, and after rehab value is 70% with an average financing fee of 6.8. We're currently using about 3.5, 3.6 million of the MakerDAO debt out of the 5 million ceiling. And the pool is open for new investors as of today. And we're requesting, we just went live with a signal request on the MakerDAO forums with the request to increase the debt ceiling up to 20 million. And that's about it from me. Any questions?
Thanks, Kirill. I have a question actually.
Yeah.
The ground up loans, they're really interesting in terms of like the different loans you offer. And I understand that you're United States only right now. You haven't expanded globally, but yeah, from where I see it, there's, housing shortages are a big problem in many places. New Zealand, where I'm from, like to build is just like untenable for many people. So I'm wondering, like, what are your plans for expansion, and also in your portfolio, how much is in these ground up loans?
The majority is fix and flip. I don't have an exact percentage of what ground ups are, but I mean, there is quite a fair amount of interest. I mean, the ground ups are a little bit different because we require substantial experience for the borrowers, because it is, building something from scratch is much harder than taking a home and renovating it, remodeling it, reselling it. So there's a little bit more of a requirement there. But it is a very interesting product. I completely agree. I mean, there's a huge shortage of building stock in many different places. And, in regards to your question about global expansion, I mean, we get inquiries all the time about, can you lend in this country or that country? I think it's an interesting thought. I mean, we'd have to really learn about the local markets. It is, very localized business. So we'd have to learn about what the local markets are like, what the judicial systems are like, what the foreclosure processes, repossessions, and things like that. But yeah, I've been thinking a little bit about it. No immediate plans though.
Okay, cool, thanks. Maybe that's a good role for Centrifuge community members in different countries all around the world, looking into real estate and foreclosure processes for you.
I think it'd be super interesting to to talk to some people that see a concrete need. I mean, I think the other piece of it is data. Like we'd want to, our model is to do as much with data as we can. So we're not interested in really like going somewhere where we'd have to go out to each property and manually, underwrite it or look at it. So having a lot of data, which I believe is available in many places. So yeah, it'd be a very interesting topic.
Yeah, cool. There's a question in the chat, Dasu. Do you want to ask a question to Kirill? It's quite
sorry, just asking like how much of your onboarding is automated when you do the Tinlake for someone who's going to come in? How much do you have to like actually, choose in person?
Well, right now it's if you're talking about onboarding to Tinlake once the loans originated, it is not automated right now. It's fairly manual, but we're working on an automation integration.
Thanks, man.
Yep.
cool. Other questions? There's one in the chat from Pep. Do you want to ask the question, Pep?
Yep. So what are some of the biggest challenges you have faced as an asset originator? And I'll add to that, what are some of the biggest challenges you see coming as you scale this out?
I mean, I think in general, scaling is certainly a challenge, and unfortunately, in the real estate market, it is it's an ebb and flow type of a market. So when the markets are hot, as they are now, I mean, right now we cannot keep up with demand. There's just so much demand right now for loans that it's difficult to on all of our, we're hiring people, but we can't hire fast enough, and we can't process fast enough. People want to close very quickly these days because they're under contract and they fear they may lose their project because time will lapse and the seller can relist the project for more money. So I think that's kind of the problem, I guess, in the general real estate space. When things are quieter, then you're looking for more demand, right? There's supply, but you're looking for demand. So yeah, I think overall the scaling issue is what we're working hard on, and I think a lot of this stuff can be solved by providing a superior product and using technology to automate a lot of things.
I guess my questions were more geared towards using Centrifuge as a source of money rather than traditional source of capital.
Right. So specifically on Centrifuge, I mean, the challenges, I think it's the integration, right? The automation. I mean, it's taking some time to to actually put assets on chain, but I think that will be solved in the near future. And then kind of because we are integrated with MakerDAO, I think that's working with the maker community, addressing their needs, and making sure that we can continue to expand that partnership has taken up a lot of time.
Awesome, thank you, and super exciting with Maker as well.
Oh, great question. Thanks, Pep. Any final questions from any of our community members? Christian, did you have one?
Yeah, I just read in a blog post about the Maker process, how to connect real world assets and use them for Maker. Anyone wants to comment on this, maybe?
What can you clarify?
Yeah, how real world assets are used as a collateral for DeFi in Maker and used for MakerDAO. Right. Maybe any news of that? I don't know if you're the right guy to answer this, but
I think someone from Tinlake, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, let's just, we'll come back to that.
Okay.
Alexi, because let's keep this on New Silver for now. Alexi asked, which oracles of risk do you work with or for invoices, Kirill?
We do not have any oracles right now. So all the underwriting is done in the real world. I think there are some things coming online that enable like on-chain pricing of real estate collateral that I saw, but nothing is integrated right now, if that's the question.
Alexi, is that? Yeah, that's answering it. Cool. Anyone else?
Maybe just on Maker, I think Kirill, you have extensive knowledge on how you're using Maker to finance your loans. So basically, the way Kirill or New Silver is making use of Maker is that they like each collateral that is added to basically the pool of collateral that's accepted on MCD, they have to run through a governance process where then MKR token holders basically vet the collateral application and vote on it, and then eventually vote it in. And Kirill has undergone or like has followed that process with New Silver. And then what happens is that basically a vault is added to the New Silver pool, and New Silver is granted a debt ceiling. So in the case here, the initial debt ceiling that was granted was 5 million DAI, and this is basically now an additional liquidity source for the pool on Tinlake. So Kirill can now have, so on one side he has external drop investors that can just go on the Tinlake dashboard and deposit liquidity there, and then in addition he can also tap into the Maker debt ceiling and basically uses as a credit line. But this is like a vault that is specifically created for his pool. Maybe I can share the link here.
I'm sharing the link to the pool.
Yeah, cool. So if you click on that, you can see that the pool is integrated with Maker, and what the current limit is, what the stability fee is, and stability fee is basically the interest rate in Maker lingo. And here you can also see how much of that debt ceiling has already been used by New Silver. And then you can also see how much that debt ceiling overall makes up of the entire pool, etc. Yeah, does that answer your question?
My question, yes, thanks.
Okay, cool.
Great, thank you, Leah. And yeah, any other reading about that, about the Maker process is probably welcome as well, especially in regards to New Silver. But we're at 1 minute to the hour, so just want to extend a huge thank you to Kirill for presenting. Very interesting stuff, and always great to collaborate with you on behalf of the entire Centrifuge team. And thank you to all the people that showed up for tonight's call. We covered a lot of things. We talked a bit about Altair. We discussed CFG rewards and how to continue those discussions. We heard a bit about the Tinlake TVL and process there, and then we also heard from New Silver. So we did a lot, and thanks to all of you that stayed with us the whole time. These calls happen once a month, the first Thursday of the month. So please join us for the next one, which will be on the 5th of August. And I will be sending out a survey to ask people what we want to cover next time. And I'm seeing a few more questions in the chat, and Colin just dropped off, so I will get these questions to him. And he will actually be presenting more details as he promised in our next call as well. So we'll get these questions answered. And also, if you do want to start a discussion around something like this, feel free to go into the forum and just post it. And that's a great way to get make it not just questions, but kind of build a bit of your thoughts, your theory into some of these questions as well. And especially if you have ideas and proposals, the forum is the place to go. Cool, thank you. I'm going to stop the recording.